everybody, this is Paige from Mosaic Moments, and just for fun, I wanted to give you guys this great horizon tutorial. This page uses most of the horizon die sets, and if you're starting to feel like your horizon die pages are kind of looking the same, this is a fun one to watch to see how you can get really creative with them. Plus, hey, as a Star Wars layout, you get to see me create this little droid looking layout. So, alright, let's get started with the demo. Alright, if you want to do a fun mix and match layout, I recommend getting out all of your horizon die sets. So I have the 4x5, the 3x5 set, and the original dies, plus the 2x4 horizon die. There's a lot of horizon dies. And to start off, you need to know that the 3x5 dies and the 3x3 die are the only ones that can fill in the corner spaces, and then all the other ones fill in between. So there's all these little ones over here on the left that can be great fillers, and it also kind of depends on what size photos you want to use. So obviously if you want bigger photos, you want to use the bigger size horizons, right? And basically in the end, you still want that circle shape. So if you're moving the dies around, it's not making a circle shape. You need to keep rearranging them. And what I like to do is just play around. And my goal is kind of trying to, for today, is trying to fit in as much as I can. So I know this die can't go in that corner. So you can obviously flip the 3x3 die around. Obviously, if you only have one of each set, you're going to have to know how they will fit within your page. So flip them around. Again, make sure you're going to get that circle shape in the end when you're finished. So I'm going to speed up the video a little bit here just so you kind of can get an idea of what all you can do. And the idea really is to just play around. And that's what's fun about these horizon dies. There's so many of them. You can just sit here and be like, hey, how can I mix things up? And something to keep in mind is to pay attention to is what's going on in the middle. So right here I have that big 5x4 space and the little 2x2 square. Of course now I got rid of them all. So that's something to keep in mind. You want the circle shape, and you also want to keep in mind of how the center is going to look in the end. So here in where the horizon dies aren't, I'm going to have to fill in that 3x4 block. So you have to keep in mind if you like that shape that's going in the middle of the circle as well. So here's a fun one. This one has a lot of big ones on the right side, little ones on the other side. Alright, so again, just keep playing around, flip them around. This is just really, again, there's a lot of possibilities, so hopefully just watching this kind of sparks some ideas and encourages you to kind of freestyle your pages. And the horizon dies, like I said, as long as you get that circle shape, you're good. I mean, the design will still be good. So yeah, it was a lot of fun just sitting here figuring this all out. So yeah, that's just how you make these puzzle pages. It's just by playing around and seeing what works for your layout, what do you want for your photos, etc. So after playing around with my dies, I'm going to show you what I decided to do. So I have the 4x5 horizon die, and this is the 3x4. I wanted to fit some bigger photos. The 3x3, and then there's the 3x5, and I decided to use both of them, one going vertical, the other going landscape or horizontal. And of course, you can still play around with it. The 2x3 dies are going here. Now I could switch it out and use the 1x2 or the 1x1 inch ones, but I didn't really want a big space in the middle, so I decided to go with the 2x3. And I also have this space which I could use 2x2 squares there or one big 2x4 block. So there's different things I could do with that space. Alright, now I want to go over the photos I chose. So the 4x5 horizon die does come with this layering size because the die without the layering size is too big for a 4x6 photograph. So I am using that layering size, and it's a good spot if you have a main subject, like I have these portraits here. And I have the 3x4 die here, which again shows another portrait. And we have printers at our office that will change the size of your photographs, which I do recommend if you're feeling like you can't fit a lot of your photographs in our dies, like the Horizon. I recommend getting a printer for your home. I think it's worth investing into because you can shrink these photos down to fit in these spaces much better. All right, with this 3x5 Horizon die, my subject, I did print it a little smaller, but also he's kind of leaning over and it matches the curve of the Horizon die. So that's something to look for, is how people are standing and seeing if they'll fit. And I want to point out the 4x5 and the 3x4 Horizon dies are pretty easy to find subjects to fit in those spaces, but the 3x5, there is that curve you have to pay attention to. So with this one here, my subject, really something I'm not worried about if I cut it off. It's not someone's face. They're just little parts of the droids we built. And there's this 3x4, or excuse me, the 3x3 die here, and this corner is really small. So I did print these photos smaller, and even then I made sure my subjects were farther away. It's a very small space, so you really need to choose subjects that are more decorative, like flowers, or make sure your subject, like a person's, their photo was taken far away. And I also, for these photos, they're going to go in the 2x3 spaces here, and so I also printed them pretty small because at full 4x6 size, there's no way they could fit. And something to keep in mind is you are going to, since the Horizon dies all have two pieces, you need to consider like the bottom of this 2x3 here. I'm not going to include that part of the photo. So you want to make sure your photos fit into the space you need to create your layout. So I did go ahead and cut out all the outer parts of the Horizon die with cardstock. If you're not familiar with the Horizon dies and you're watching this tutorial, I recommend clicking the link on the top right and seeing our other tutorials on how to use the Horizon dies. So this is kind of more to show you guys a fun layout idea, not really a tutorial on how to use the Horizon dies. But right now I am showing how I cut my photographs. I'm using the Revolution die machine, and I have the crease pad. That's to, I have another tutorial on the crease pad actually. Basically it's usually with the dies, the photos tend to get an embossed edge, and so the crease pad helps you avoid that. But for some cuts, like the smaller cuts, I do use the plastic plate instead of the crease pad. All right. Here I just, sometimes if it's going to be a very, very close cut, I use a pair of scissors to trim off that white part of the paper because it would be too hard for me to tell if that die is really going to cut over the part of the photograph I want, because sometimes I've cut it and it accidentally gets a bit of the white in, and it bugs me and I print a whole new photo. So just so you know, on these tighter cuts, go ahead and cut off those edges with a pair of scissors. Alright, so I have this 3x5 Horizon die cut. And of course you want to carefully glue each piece by putting it right next to the outer edge. Well, on the outer edges I use cardstock. You could also use pattern paper or another photograph to fill in that space. For my page, I wanted it to look like a droid, so I decided to use cardstock. And I do have chalk ink around the edges of my cardstock pieces because I wanted a distressed look. If you're familiar with Star Wars, you know it looks really gritty and kind of beat up looking at a lot of things. So that's kind of where the inspiration for that came from. All right, and I'm cutting out this other corner here. I'm very carefully putting it on top of my photo, and you can see here I'm using the plastic plate now because I find for some reason these smaller cuts don't always cut through with the crease pad. I'm not really sure why, but so you can try it out at home, but just so you're aware, you may need to switch over to your plastic plates for some cuts. And of course I use repositionable glue, which is really handy, especially with the horizon dies. You may not get that photo down quite perfectly the first time you put it down next to your paper. It may accidentally overlap on top of your outline, or maybe there's a little gap between them and you need to fix it. So that repositionable glue is really handy for Mosaic Moments pages. Alright, for this cut, on some of the cuts you have to put down the photo first and then the extra piece because the outer piece didn't line up on the grid lines, or it would have been really hard to tell where to place them. So I probably talked more about that in the other tutorials. I have my last photo here to cut. And again, I think it's worth investing into those photo printers at home to resize these photos at your convenience. Alright, so I have all my photos down, and so far I think this page looks pretty awesome, but I need to fill in those 2 spaces, so I'm going to show you quick. So this one was cut with the 2x2 circle die, and I put some chalk ink in that black part of the paper, so it kind of looks like a droid's eye. And on the bottom is another square piece, and those 2 little black squares are from the layering die set. And the rest of the squares I'm putting on here are also from the layering die set. So it's actually the squares on here, the black squares are the 2 smallest squares in the layering die set A. So you never know when those are going to come in handy, right? You don't always use it for your remote. The place on the grid paper, it's fun for little projects like this where you need to make things decorative. So just some fun tips there for you. Alright, we have reached the end of today's video. Again, this was not really meant to be a tutorial on how to use the horizon dies. Go check out that horizon die playlist if you want to see more of those. But for those of you who are familiar with the horizon dies, I hope you had fun watching today's video, and I hope it sparked some ideas. And like I said, to have fun, play around, do these fun puzzle pages. You're welcome to use my design here for your own layout, of course. And also a little bonus was this Star Wars, so take a look at this, and if you need a Star Wars page, this is a fun, simple way to get that droid looking design on your layout. Anyway, if you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe to see more videos. You never know what's on the horizon. Okay, that was a little lame. Alright, I hope you guys have fun scrapping at home, and I'll see you next time.